How is the U.S. handling the current conflict in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, and when it comes to our involvement with the war and with aid?
So let me first say that all the fighting is going on in Ukraine. This isn't an argument over who's responsible. This is the fault of Russia invading Ukraine. The problem is that we don't have the money to help. So we're $31 trillion in debt. We can't afford to try and help fix that. So we're sending a lot of money, we're sending a lot of equipment using money we don't have, which is causing our own nation harm. So that's part of the problem when you run up $31 trillion in debt, is that you don't have the money to do the things that you want to do. So the other thing is that it's not really our business. We can't afford to be the world's policeman. It's kind of what caused the Soviet Union to collapse in the first place. The Soviet Union collapsed because they couldn't afford to do all of the foreign stuff that they were doing. All the interference they had overseas bankrupted their nation. We can't afford to let the same thing happen here. What we need to do is get some responsible government so that then when something comes up where we do need to spend money, we have it to spend. In the meanwhile, we do have people, I'm out of time, sorry.
Yeah, I'm afraid, sir. Mr. Womack, you have 1 minute, sir.
I'm not real sure I understand his answer, because on one hand, we don't need to be involved, but on the other hand, the collapse of the Soviet Union was because we're not involved. Fortunately, he was not in charge back in the 1930s and 1940s when World War II was raging in two different fronts. Look, we cannot afford for Eastern Europe to be overrun by an unchecked Vladimir Putin. And he's trying to reclaim exactly what was dissolved in the late 80s, early 90s. So, I support the United States of America helping our allies so that we never have to trigger an Article 5 response in NATO. And I promise you, if he's unchecked, if he's able to take Ukraine, he's going to take Georgia, he's going to take the rest of those former Soviet bloc countries, and he's going to run roughshod over the rest of Europe, and that's something that our country, the rest of the world, just simply cannot afford. So I support our role in helping our friends in Ukraine defend themselves against this brutal dictator.
Ms. Mallett-Hayes, 1 minute.
This is actually something I do agree with Mr. Womack on. We have got to keep our relationship strong. We have to ensure that the eastern part of the globe does not crumble under Putin. He has got to be held responsible. And if we do nothing, he will continue to overtake as much of the continent as he can. Without our help, that's what we're going to see. And we're going to be in a much worse crisis than we're in right now following the pandemic. So I also support what Congress has done. I hope that we're able to help them meet a more formidable outcome without having to escalate any further. But there is always that fear of we don't know what Mr. Putin's going to do, and we have to be ready for everything.
Mr. Klages, you have 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah, I would just like to remind everybody that our country was attacked in World War II. We were justified in going to war then. Putin hasn't attacked us. So at a certain point, Europe is going to have to be able to solve their own problems because, like I said, we can't afford to be the world's policeman. So it would be nice, but we can't. I would encourage every American to voluntarily contribute as much as they want. But we can't force Americans to contribute. We can't go into debt further in order to do this, or we'll be doing more harm to ourselves than we ever were to Russia.
30 seconds, Mr. Womack.
The geopolitical issues facing the world with an unchecked Putin are just not something that we can live with. And I mean, there are lots of, you see it just like I see it. And our staff has even handled constituent service issues involving our friends in Ukraine. We just simply cannot allow this guy to continue to run roughshod over his former Soviet bloc neighbors. This is a sovereign nation that has been attacked, and as I said, we've got a responsibility to NATO. It's danger close to our NATO countries. I'd never want to see us have to respond in an Article 5 way to an attack on the rest of the NATO bloc.
Ms. Mallett-Hayes.
I understand Mr. Caglia's concern about us spending money that we don't choose to spend to help Ukraine, but that can be said for a lot of our taxes being spent on things that a lot of us don't necessarily agree with. But at the same time, the purpose right now is to prevent any escalation in the current situation that could potentially not only affect the United States, but globally. And I think that's something that we need to continue to be a part of the solution.